Hello, hello, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. So good to be hanging out with you. I have been really looking forward to today because it's been so many weeks since we've been able to hang out here on the channel. And you guys and gals are my community, and so I've really missed you these last 4 or 5 weeks. Of course, here in Australia, we've had, well, certainly in my home state of Queensland, here in Australia, we've had this string of public holidays on a Monday. So if you have been wondering, where is Dr. Dan's live show gone, and that's where I've been. I've been, taking some time to spend time with family and friends and get some jobs done around the house, and you know how it is. Anyway, it's good to be back, and we have got a super exciting term coming up. Like the next run of live shows that we're going to be doing together are, I'm just a little bit excited, and I want to tell you about what we've got coming up, because we've got 3 special guests. As you know, we have the best guests come onto the show and join me for a discussion about, particular topics, and we have literally, and this is not me just exaggerating, we literally have some of the best, most well-known, renowned singing pedagogues come onto this show. They all do it out of the generosity of their own heart, and we are so fortunate that we can have them join us, and so I want to tell you about the 3 that we're going to be having over the next few weeks. Now, next week we'll be having one of our authors of this book, The Vocal Athlete, Marci Rosenberg. Marci's been on the show before. I was trying to remember whether she's been on once or twice. I think she's been on twice. Well, she's going to be joining us a 3rd time. And this book, as you know, I mention this book in my pre-record videos all the time, The Vocal Athlete. This book gets so much press in the singing teaching world. It is just ridiculous how well known and well used, how respected this text is. And so Marci, one of the co-authors, Wendy Laborn has also been on the show before, and she's the other author of this fantastic book. Wendy is not going to be able to join us for this particular chat. I'm sure it would be great to have Wendy on again. But anyway, Marci's coming on next week. Now, Marci's been recently looking into the idea of singing when sick. Should you sing when you're sick? We've talked about this quite a few times here on the show. Anyway, so Marci's been doing some really interesting research, and she's about to publish a journal article. Really well researched, a lot of academic rigor. We're going to be talking about that subject next week. I don't want you to miss that show. There's going to be so much really fantastic, like up to the minute, up to date, up to the minute information that you're going to be able to grab from next week's live show. Now, remembering that, just so you don't miss any of our live shows, the best way to do that is to subscribe to the channel, hit the white bell icon, and make sure you get the notifications, so that way YouTube will remind you of the shows when we go live. And I don't want you to miss any of them. So simple subscribe to the channel is the best way to do that. I haven't mentioned what we're doing today. We're going to be doing a Q&A today, and answering your questions. And I've got a neat new little sort of software trick that I'm going to try a little bit later in the show. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Before we do, though, I want to tell you about the other 2 very special guests we've got coming onto the show this term, I should say. On the 30th of May, now so next week is the 16th of May here in Australia. The show goes live at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And so for many of you watching in the Northern Hemisphere, next week's show is actually the 15th of May. Check your local guides. So on the 30th of May, which for many of you will be the 29th of May, we have the lady who authored this book Claudia Friedlander, Dr. Claudia Friedlander. And I've used this book in some of my pre-records. I've referenced it. Fantastic text. Really great. I am really looking forward to the discussion that we're going to be having with Claudia, because we're going to be talking about body mechanics, and that probably isn't no surprise given the anatomy and biomechanics, right? So there's no surprise we're going to be talking about body mechanics, but at the moment, Claudia has a particular interest. She's been really getting into looking at the effects and the implication of fascia. Fascia is a connective tissue that essentially surrounds every single part of your body, your nerves, your muscles, your bones, and it's a connective tissue, and it has a really big impact on how your body moves and what have you. And anyway, so she's going to be talking to us about how that all interrelates upon our singing, and how we can work with our fascia to improve our voice. I told you, I'm a little bit excited about this term. Okay, and then a few weeks later, on the 13th of June, for many of you will be the 12th of June, we have Dr. Kari Ragan joining us. Now, Dr. Kari Ragan, she has authored this book and called a Systematic Approach to Voice, and I'm currently reading this text. It is, sometimes you read something and it's not, I'm getting a lot of new stuff from the book, but just as much I'm receiving a lot of affirmation from Dr. Ragan. It's because she is putting into text my general approach to voice, which is very systematic and very methodical. And anyway, so Dr. Ragan is going to be joining us, as I said, later in the term. Between each of our guests, the weeks that sit in the middle, we will be doing our usual Q&As. And these Q&A sessions are where you and we just have a chat and you ask your questions and I do my best to provide an answer. Hey, have you also noticed this QR code up here? QR codes are becoming kind of more the thing these days, aren't they? I've been using QR codes in my learning materials for quite some time, but I've never put a QR code up there. And I'll let you know, that QR code will take you to voiceessentials.com.au, because for some of you, now why is that? I wonder if that's a bit unusual, isn't it? Whoa. Anyway, that's not that bottom thing's not rolling, and I don't know why it's not rolling. I just noticed that. Anyway, so if you click on the QR code, you'll be able to take advantage of jumping straight over to voiceessentials.com.au. A few little extra things that I'm trying to balance out today. So what I want to do is get straight into your questions. Now, as you know, when we answer your questions, those questions that come in a chronological order, we answer them beginning to end, but the first in, best dressed. But of course, if you absolutely want your question answered today, we always prioritize those who are putting in a super chat. That is, those of you who add a little bit of dollar to your question. All of those proceeds go to us, here at the channel, the actual running of the channel, and your donations are very much gratefully received. And so you can do that. But for now, why don't we jump over here and click this. Okay, now my first question. Now, did you see that? Did you see? Let me see if I can do that again. This is new. This is brand new. So get rid of that and then do that again. How cool is that? Okay, so I've got to get out more. Okay, so I'm now able to put the question that we're answering up on screen, which is super cool. I really hope this continues to work as well as it has in practice. Okay, so the question that we have here is from Mackenzie. And Mackenzie has asked, my question is, my doctor also thinks I have a vocal tremor and she's sending me to a top laryngologist at Mayo Clinic. Basically, Mackenzie's asking, what is vocal tremor? Well, Mackenzie, and I'm sorry I didn't see your question in the Facebook group. You know, I do. We are a growing community here at Voice Essentials, and hand on heart, I do at times struggle to keep up with just the amount of information that is coming in from the community and the questions and the. So I humbly ask for your forgiveness for missing your question, Mackenzie, but we get to answer it now. What is a vocal tremor? Essentially, a vocal tremor is a neurological disorder, and so it's in how the brain is feeding its instructions to the vocal folds, and a vocal tremor is essentially an involuntary muscle movement. I went to say spasm, but that's not really a good descriptor, because a tremor, the way the disruption is taking place can take place in a very rhythmic kind of way, so that it has a consistency to it. Vocal tremors, like many things to do with the human body, and in this case the voice, are quite individualized, and you have to, you know, really zone in on the specific aspects of whatever's going on for the voice, for that individual. And so you made mention that you're going to be seeing a voice therapist, and so they'll talk you through that. But your question, it is a neurological disorder that can be challenging to work through. But you know, voice therapists, this is why we go and see them. They have some really handy therapies that can be really quite beneficial. So I encourage you to see that through. Mackenzie, I've just seen Scuba Girls International Super Chat. Thank you, Scuba Girls, for the purple love heart. Hey, and is it, let me know in the chat, is it currently Mother's Day in the US? Because it was Mother's Day yesterday in Australia, and so I'll send out a happy Mother's Day to all of the Australian mothers. And I'm getting a yes, it is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all of those of you who are mums. I hope you've had a lovely day. I hope you've been able to rest. Maybe you're a person who likes bed and breakfast. Maybe you were served, you know, breakfast in bed and breakfast. You wouldn't want your bed in breakfast, I don't think. I hope you were able to have breakfast in bed. Oh dear. Crazy stuff. Okay. Can I come down here? Let's have a look at, now the way I go about getting our questions up is we do this, and look at that. It works. No one's more surprised than I am. Alyssa has asked, how can I learn to hit a high note without getting short-winded? Please answer my question. I need help. I won't be able to watch live. Well, Alyssa, I do hope you can come back and watch the answer, because we're the answer, here it comes. So how can you learn to hit a high note without getting short-winded? The key is to actually, first of all, learn to manage your air. And the challenge Often when we're finding ourselves short-winded, and by that I'm taking you to mean that you feel like you're running out of air, is because you're driving too much air through the larynx as you're creating those high notes. There's a great temptation to force more and more and more air as you get higher. But in fact, all that's going to do, as you're finding out, is you're going to run out of air because there'll be a lack of efficiency around the way that air is being used. But not only that, you'll find that the voice will get quite constricted the higher you go because it'll start to pressurize. And then as the air starts to run out, the larynx will go into like a rationing sort of valving motion, and that, you know, just heightens that load of constriction. So first work on your breath management, and then go about working on the high notes. It's a lot of the time with the voice, there are many sort of red herrings. There are things that go, deal with me, it's the high notes. Actually, it's not necessarily the high notes first. You've got to deal with the breath management first and then deal with the high notes. So Alyssa, I hope you're able to come back and see that as an answer. So we've got a question here from Vault Boy. Let me see if I can... Watch this. Boom. How cool is that? Okay. Hi, Dr. Dan. How do I reach the 5th octave? Well, dear me. I mean, I'm only usually at my extension working over 3.5 octaves, and I'm considered to have a really broad range. So working over the 5th octave, well, do you mean like you're working across a range of 5 octaves, or you're just wanting to sing up into like C5, D5? That might be a way to clarify the question. I feel where my voice needs to resonate via the nasal area, but the muscles at the side of my neck strain. It's like my cords are struggling to connect. Yeah, again, look, there could be an acoustical / resonance issue going on there in the way you're managing your vocal resonance. And certainly we know that the acoustics, the resonance of our voice, does have an implication on our capacity to sing through our range, low to high. But once again, I first and foremost, and I, you know, already today it can come off feeling like all I do is talk about breath, but I don't. But in this case, it may well be in how you're using your air again. So, for example, what pressures you're working with and how they then, you know, factor in on your sense of placement. And that, I saw a fellow pedagogue just posting on this the subject of placement again, which then her post causes me to want to clarify my use of the term placement. The term placement is a metaphorical term. Our voice doesn't place anywhere, essentially. But it is I find it a helpful term to describe that sensory notion of where I feel the voice. So we might think about forward placement. Equally, we might think about a back-placed sound. And this is all determined by what is the aesthetic outcome that you, the singer, are seeking to present. And so it's always important to remember the term placement is not a you know, a definitive term that where we go, okay, place the voice here. It's a sensory sort of adjective term. Is that, can we say it like that? Anyway, it's metaphorical. Okay, so yeah, I would, as far as resonating the via the nasal area, in fact, I recently posted, even though we haven't been, together here in the live show for a number of weeks, as those of you who do regularly, engage with the channel, that we've been, I've continued to every week send up a pre-record video. And one of those was, do your sinuses resonate? I really encourage you to have a look at that video if you haven't already. Vault Boy, you might want to check that out, because it just clarifies some things around what we feel on a sensory level, and I think you might find that helpful. So yeah, just that point around the fifth octave, I don't know that I've answered you as well as I would have liked to have. It's just simply because I'm not sure whether you're talking about singing over 5 octaves, which if you are, that's quite impressive, or if you're just talking about singing up into the 5th octave on a keyboard. Let's come over here. So I think we've got this comment here. That's never going to grow old. I just love the fact that I can do that now. I've been wanting the software I use to produce these live shows. I've wanted this for so long, and they finally put it in an upgrade. So I'm a happy user. Okay, Yannick. Oh, I've just seen that. Sorry, I've just seen a note from Vault Boy who has said yes, C5 and above. Okay. So, yeah, I think it's more a resonance strategy thing that you've got to look at there, Vault Boy. Yannick is saying, hello, I like your content very much. Thank you, Yannick. Thanks for engaging with it. It's very professional, fun, and informative. I'm glad you find it that. I want to ask more about pitch and what's the really best way to deal with it. Thanks very much and keep up the great work. To deal with pitch, in one sense, this is going to sound flippant. I don't mean for it to be flippant, but in one sense, the best way to deal with pitch is to not focus on it. Certainly in the first instance. When we focus in on pitch, you are almost certainly going to realize just how inaccurate your biological instrument is by nature. And there is nothing wrong with that. Mine is, everyone else in the chat is, every other human being on the planet has a wonderfully imperfect biological instrument. And so inaccuracy of pitch is a part of that pitcher. So one of the challenges when we think about pitch is we zone in on just simply what we're hearing. That is the product. And in zoning in and focusing on the product, we actually forget to fix the process. And so when I say the best thing to do is to not focus on the pitch, that's not to say we can't look to develop and improve our pitch accuracy. What did I say it like that? Accuracy. Oh dear. Sometimes I listen to myself and go, what? So sometimes what we're best to do is to not focus on the pitch accuracy. That's how I would normally say pitch accuracy, not accuracy. Pitch accuracy. The best way to focus on that is to actually look at, okay, what am I doing in the production of that note? That's going to include, where is the note? So for example, with Vault Boy, if your note is C5, and let's say you're a baritone, then that's a very high note. That's almost going to be a note, almost certainly going to be a note in falsetto for a baritone. But that aside, so where you sing the note in your voice is going to be a thing. The vowel on which that note is being created is going to have an implication on the way you are shaping the note. So the tonal pitching, we can drag the tone flat, you know, if our vowel is not being well shaped. Now this has then got to be in accordance with the style of singing that you are doing. And then we've got to think about, okay, well, what am I doing with my air? Am I supplying the right amount of air when it comes to that note with that vowel in that style? And as we manage the air, we then want to manage our tension, because our muscular activity, because at certain points our body has a tendency to want to get all tight and constricted and gather tension, and so learning to manage that. All of that goes towards how you then deliver a note and how accurately on pitch you deliver it. In one sense, singing a note in pitch or on pitch is not the hard bit. It's actually your ability to intonate between pitches, from one pitch to another pitch. That's where we will find the challenge. Often with a new student, when they come in, I often do a vocal analysis with them, and we'll sing a single note, ya, and I'll get the student to repeat that, ya. More often than not, most people, not everyone, but most people can replicate a single pitch with relative accuracy. The challenge is when we then start, you know, having to sing a whole heap of notes strung together, a melody, and move the voice accurately from note to note. Because then, you know, when we add lyric, we're not only singing it on a single vowel, we've got a variety of vowels, we've got a variety of notes that are sitting in a variety of places across the voice. You can see why learning to sing and developing your voice is quite a challenge, because this is not easy to do, to learn to do well. And so all of these things are what factor in to the way you ask the question, what's the really best way to deal with it? So one of the ways that we really deal with it, I went to say one of the ways we deal with it is auto-tune. Well, actually, that was flippant, but it kind of is. We do, you know, deal with inaccuracy of pitch in studio with auto-tune, and on one level, there's nothing wrong with that because, you know, everyone's doing it. But as far as the acoustic development of your voice, we drill notes. And this is where the benefit of working with a vocal system like Voice Essentials is so important, because it empowers you, it gives you the system, the method to actually drill notes, which in turn improves your pitch accuracy if you are at the same time focusing on the process, not simply the product. And so, for example, in the first 10, 15 lessons with a new student, I very rarely will zone in on pitch. Why? Because I know when we are able to workshop a whole range of other issues like we've just been talking about, breath, tension, vowel, resonance, when I'm able to help this singer develop more efficiencies into their sound production, pitch naturally, of its own accord, starts to improve. Now, that is not to say that I never focus or zone in on pitch, but it comes later in the process. And that's something that I'd encourage you to think about. Also, Yannick, okay, so let's jump in here. Claudia has a, oops, whoa, Claudia, first time here, seen a couple of your videos. I just wanted to know, who can I see for vocal therapy after getting my tonsils and adenoids removed? Well, I do have a colleague, and she's been live here on the show with me. Her name is Patricia Baldock. I have been working with Patricia for in team with her, and we've had many collaborative workings with different students over the years. She's wonderful. She's so highly respected. So you can search Patricia Baldock here in the channel, and you can make contact with her. I'm never someone to say, you know, voice therapy is unnecessary. However, I'm left wondering what the need for voice therapy after a tonsillectomy and adenoid removal is, unless something's gone wrong. You know, yeah, there might be more to your story. Typically, you know, we wouldn't, you know, the prescribing, for the want of a better term, prescribing voice therapy after a tonsillectomy would not be as a part of the process. So I hope everything's okay. But yeah, if you do want to seek out a speech pathologist, a voice therapist, then you can certainly check out Patricia, and she does sessions via Zoom, so you can also look into that. Where are we going? Sorry, I have to type in the words the wonderful Linda gives me here. 4 years. Where am I going here, Linda? I'm looking, trying to find. I haven't. Oh, how can I find? Oh, I've got local choir. Here we go. I didn't read the whole question. I think we're doing okay, given that this is the first time I've ever used this. Okay, so Pudu is asking, how can I find a local choir to join? How good should I be before I try to join? That's going to depend on the choir, Pudu. In fact, I saw a Cheap Trill's new video on Facebook the other day. Just thought it was wonderful. And so Cheap Trill is the community choir that I generally direct people to here in Brisbane. It's non-auditioned. I just think it exists for all the right reasons. Is my humble opinion of Cheap Trill, and they're fantastic. But they're obviously local here to Brisbane. What you might want to consider, Purdue, is to think about, you know, what are you looking for in a community choir? For some people, the big part of their participation in a community choir is community. Yeah, it's just the ability to be with other people, and so the level or the expertise of the choir is not really a big part of it. They want to sing and they want to have a lot of fun, but it's more about hanging out with other people. For others, and we have a choir here in Brisbane, which is a highly, like, it's really hard to get into, the Brisbane, the QPAC choir, the Queensland Performing Arts Choir, and it's audition based because they are, you know, a lot of them are professional singers, and so it's a lot harder to get into it. That's not to say that they too don't enjoy the community of choir. I think every choir enjoys community, but it's more focused on the professional standard. And so you've got to really identify for yourself, what am I seeking to get out of it? And if you, for example, say you want to get into a professional choir, but you know that your skill level isn't, where it possibly needs to be, then you could start out by joining a community choir that is non-audition based, learn some skills, and good choirs will, sometimes directly, sometimes informally educate you as you go. You can engage and develop your own individual voice with, things like Voice Essentials and my online courses, and then work yourself up to the standard that that the professional choir might be seeking. Purdue, I hope that helps. What have we got here? Main tips. Here we go. So, Sean. Saunders Sean. Hi, Dr. Dan. What's your main tips when singing harsh and glottal? Well, unless it's stylistically required, don't. But it more often than not, when people want to sing with, a sense of harshness or a sense of glottal drive, then more often than not that's because there's stylistic requirements. So the first key to developing this, Sean, is to build efficiency into your voice, build balance, know where that middle ground is, where everything is working efficiently, because harshness, pressed voice, glottal work, distorted vocal values, these are all choices that we want to intentionally, knowingly add into the sound. We never want those sounds to be habitual. If they are habitual, that is, it's just the sound that your voice creates, that could lead to some real challenges for you vocally from a health standpoint. It can fatigue the voice at a higher rate. It can reduce your stamina rates. You want to be in complete control of your choices around making those sounds. And so that's the key. That's the number one tip when it comes to, developing those. And you can certainly, we've had Melissa Cross on here from Zen of Scream on the show, talking about the development of distorted voice values. But even, Melissa would be, the first to tell us we need to establish efficient voice first and then make the choices on top of that. Moonstar is asking... Moonstar is asking, can we learn to sing by just watching the YouTube videos? Well, Moonstar, yeah, it's the hard way. It is the hard way to go about it. The one thing that YouTube videos will never be able to do, can I say that? I wonder how good AI is going to get and how our delivery modes of education will change in the future. So maybe I can't say never. Certainly, as of 2022, what a YouTube video can never do is listen to you, diagnose or identify when you're doing something wrong, and then instruct you on how to fix it. A YouTube video can only ever offer you the upfront instruction, and if I might be so bold, good YouTube videos will err on the side of generalization. And the reason certainly I do my best to do that is because I don't want to be too specific, because every voice is different. And I could have, watching one video, I could have a male voice in their 20s, a female voice in their 50s, a transgender voice in their teens. The variety of individuals that are watching my videos is, the multiplicity is unending. So I have to be very careful. I try to be very careful. I'm not saying I succeed at this all the time, but I try to be careful to offer information that is general. It is, good content, generally correct. But the one thing I can't do is offer you that, specific feedback. At this point in time, the gold standard for learning to sing is private tuition. That is where you are one-on-one with a singing teacher like myself, and we're able to give you that personalized, individualized feedback, help you to refine and tweak and change and develop. But of course, that's not always possible for a lot of people. And so that's where the middle ground is my online voice courses. Now, just like the YouTube videos, they can't diagnose and correct, but they are that little bit more refined in the way certainly in the way I deliver the information, because I can give you so much more information as a part of those courses. And so many people in the live chat have participated or are currently enrolled in my online courses, and I know so many of them speak very highly of the courses. They're really, doing a good thing for a lot of singers across the world. So, Moonstar, you might want to give that some thought. But you will, back to your original question: can we learn to sing by just watching the YouTube videos? You'll get stuff out of them. You will, which is why I do them. But it's generalized. We're going to go one more question. Ranger Bush. Who's asked this question? No. Can we learn to sing by watching? No, that was Michael. Where are you, Michael? Here we go. I think this is the final question for today. Hello, what is the range of bass? Well, that depends on which textbook you read. Look, it's anywhere from, some basses will go all the way down to C1, but typically we would think of bass as being, anywhere down from C2 up to F4. Like it depends. This is the challenge of voice types, is that every voice is different. What have you also asked here? I read online that it begins in the notes of E2 or F2. I purchased and I'm working on your program, and you state that it's baritone. I can sing E2 to C5. What am I? Look, E2 to C5. It all depends on where the prima voce is, like that, where the sweet spot of your voice is. But that's sounding kind of baritone-ish, Michael. I do have a whole video on this subject, and you can go and check it out. What is my voice type? It's my biggest video. It's got, I don't know, 1.7 million views now or something. But don't become too prescriptive on what your lowest note is and what your highest note is, in so much as if they don't directly line up with, what the textbook voice type says, that's okay. This is not an exact science. We have to kind of roughly see where our instrument, sits. And then when we also think about it is, often those textbook definitions identifying skilled, trained voices, and so when we're in the process of developing and bringing our voice, up to a certain standard, then it is expected that our range will shift, that our lowest note might get a little bit lower, our highest note might get a little bit higher, and the manner in which you're able to move throughout your range becomes far more cohesive and efficient and reliable. And so it's one thing to say, I've got a D5. Well, that's cool. Can you hit that D5 reliably, night in, night out, every night of the week? Now, if you can, then you've got a D5. If you hit a D5 and it took you by surprise, well, that tells you that your voice is capable of singing a D5, but that doesn't necessarily mean you got a D5. It means it maybe shows you what your voice might be capable of with some, with some work. But I wouldn't take a one-off excited, oh, wow, did you hear me do that? That was cool. I've never done that before. And then suddenly list that and go, I've got a D5. It might be more realistic to say you've got a B4 and go, well, because I know I can, night in, night out, that's reliable. You can bank your money on that note. So just think about those things when thinking about your voice types. Dearie me. Well, that has been a lot of fun. And I don't know, now why is that? I want to check this out. Why is that not working, I wonder? It's a bit bizarre. I don't know why. I'll have to fix that later and see why is that scrolling, not scrolling down the bottom. I hope you have enjoyed today. I kid you not, I have been looking forward to hanging out with you all again. It's been so much fun. And we got through 11 questions today. I don't know that that's a record, but we did pretty well. I hope you've enjoyed, as we've hung out and, the answers that we've been able to talk about. Next week, remember, we have got Marci joining us from the Vocal Athlete. And if you've had questions around singing when sick, then next week is the week to what do we say? Tune in to the show. We don't tune into shows anymore. We just click. Next week's the week to click into the show and hang out, and because it's going to be a really fascinating, like literally up to the moment, research-backed piece of information. What will be exciting is if my understanding is updated as well, and I hope it will be, and I hope you'll join us for the show next week. Hey, if you've enjoyed today's show, hit the thumbs up button, and hit the white bell icon, because that's how we know that you're going to get reminded every week when we go live. I do hope you'll do so, and I look forward to seeing you again next week, when you'll always hear me say, my name is Dr. Dan, sing well.